lot of companies, they don't have, the luxury of having all of your experiences under the executive management, right? And I think this is a question for all of you, from your individual perspectives. Um, how what would you plan for? What would you tell that company that doesn't have all of the resources? What are the most important things individually that you guys think would be key for them to prepare for? So let's start off with you, Bob.
I think finding the partners ahead of time that can fill those gaps for you. And I'll give you an example. Um, Even at Blizzard, we had a fairly big security team, and forensics, especially in a situation like that, it takes a specialized type of person. And we didn't necessarily have work for that person where we could actually fulfill a role. So we needed to go out and find a partner to do that. And we had a situation that came up, and I had to go out and get somebody immediately, and I ended up paying quite a bit of money per hour for that individual. But I learned my lesson. And after that, I went out and partnered with a vendor that could provide that ahead of time and put them on a small retainer, and was able to get, the hourly costs down by a fraction. I think it was probably a sixth of what, I'm sorry, a fifth of what it would have cost originally. So finding those vendors ahead of time is really important, and to fill those gaps if you don't have them internally.
Mhm. Sylvia, what about you? What are some of the things that are really key if a company doesn't have a full-on CHRO and a whole team and their HR department to help them through this? What are some of the key things you think they should do?
I do second what Bob said about making sure you understand what you don't have and be ready to partner with outside firms or whatever works for you. It could be other partners to identify at the very least what you don't have. From a people perspective, I think there are some basics that you should put in place no matter what your size is. You should have some confidentiality agreements. You should have some training. There's some things that even if you're, besides just being a company of one, once you have that second person, there's some things that you should have in place, and identifying those early on in your company size and being consistent as to how you apply it, I think is really important, because it has to be scalable as you start to grow and your risk start becoming higher.
Great, great. What about you, Roberto? What are some things from a communication standpoint you think just key to have?
I think the first thing is, if you identify who your stakeholders are, who would have to be notified? Is it customers? Is it vendors? Is it consumers broadly? And based on that, you would say, okay, who do I need? There might be a first pass of people within the organization who would talk to some key stakeholders. But then if you need to go broader than that, then who would be the right partner? Is it a PR firm? Is it a digital agency? And then you identify them and do exactly what Bob said, which is pre-plan, pre-negotiate, put them on a small retainer. In some cases, you may not even need to put on a retainer. It may just be a project basis, but be ready to push the button.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear you talk about identifying the stakeholders, and it goes back to what Jim was saying before about identifying the business risk, because that's the key thing that we've noticed is a lot of companies, they don't look at this as a business risk situation. They look at it as a technology risk situation, or a departmental issue, but it really it maps to all the different drivers of the business, and could affect all of them. So really liked what you said there. What about you, Jim? Company doesn't have a CIO and a security team. What are some of the basics that you think they would?
Well, I think, first of all, if you have a small workforce that handles your IT, they probably need to be, you need to think about them also being skilled or trained in some of the aspects of cyber. So if they write code or if they configure hardware, that they have, it's some of the basics down so that they can start with that help. But second thing is you probably have some form of an agreement with a software provider with, and maybe more and more is becoming cloud. You might look at that agreement to see what cybersecurity capabilities they would offer for you as well, and look and see what the options are there. At least know what they would do in case they recognize a breach and who they would contact and how would you work with them, depending on the size of the deal you have. So don't assume a contract is too small. Third is, you pay insurance for a lot of things. So you might look at cybersecurity insurance. You may also want to look at, having a firm who you can call on in anticipation, sort of like Bob was talking about, such that you can have a call as you need arrangement with a firm that could come in and help you in time of need. And maybe that becomes an ongoing type of capability. But those are the first things that come off, to my mind about how you would approach this. I would also think about if you're just using technology at home, and more of us have a lot of technology, whether it's smart home or whether it's multiple devices, networks, things like that. You have to think about, what would you do if you had an issue in your own home? If you noticed that you had, been breached on your computer, you may have to come up. You have to come up to a skill set and training as well as to what you might do, and so that may change your backup strategy. It may change it so that you're backing up your critical data, so that recovery is less onerous. So you have to kind of think in terms of what your own situation might be as well. And those are my words of, whatever they are, wisdom or experience.